Do this, God said, and your children will become a great nation. How? Abraham wondered. His wife Sarah was too old to have children. Trust me, God said. Go where I tell you, God said, and you will have more descendants than there are stars in the sky. They will bless the whole world. Trust me. So Abraham trusted God. He took Sarah, his nephew Lot, and everything they owned. He went where God told him to go. He went to the land of Canaan. When he arrived, Abraham camped at Shechem. God appeared to him. I will give this land to you and your children, God said. Abraham built an altar to God there. Abraham traveled around God's promised land. He was glad that he had trusted God. So he built another altar and gave thanks to God for all he had been promised. Abraham lived in Haran. Do this. Abraham lived in Haran. God's amazing promise. Wherever you go, a famine came to Israel. Elimelech, Naomi, and their sons went to Moab to find food. Elimelech died. The sons married Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. Then the sons died too. The three women had no husbands. When the famine in Israel was over, Naomi decided to go home. Stay in Moab, she said to her daughters-in-law. It's your home. Orpah stayed, but Ruth said, wherever you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. Together, Ruth and Naomi went back to Israel. It was harvest time in Israel. Naomi told Ruth to gather the bits of grain left behind in a field. The field belonged to Boaz, Elimelech's relative. Boaz approached Ruth. You were very kind to Naomi, Boaz said. Leaving home must have been hard. May God bless you. He gave Ruth food and told his workers to watch over her. Ruth told Naomi what happened. Naomi smiled. When someone dies, his closest relative cares for his family. That person is their kinsman redeemer. Boaz is our kinsman redeemer. Stay close to him. So Ruth stayed close to Boaz. He liked her more each day. Boaz bought Elimelech's land and took care of Naomi and Ruth. Then he asked Ruth to marry him. Ruth had a son called Obed. Obed's son was Jesse. Jesse's son was David. And David became Israel's greatest king. So God blessed Ruth just as Boaz had prayed. The walls go up. Nehemiah was the cupbearer to King Artaxerxes of Persia. Nehemiah heard that Jerusalem was in ruins and that his friends there were in trouble. He asked God to help them. God gave Nehemiah the courage to speak to King Artaxerxes. Nehemiah asked if he could go to Jerusalem and help them fix their walls. Artaxerxes agreed. Nehemiah left for Jerusalem. Huh? Nehemiah walked around Jerusalem. Things were even worse than he'd heard. This will be a big job, he told the people. But with God's help, we can rebuild these walls. Everyone worked in families and groups, fixing the gates first. They fixed the sheep gate, the fish gate, the dung gate, and the other gates. Then they started rebuilding the walls. First, their enemies laughed. But as the walls grew higher, those enemies prepared to attack. So God's people worked with a tool in one hand and a sword in the other. After just 52 days, the wall was finished. Ezra the priest read God's law to the people. They promised to obey God's law and praised him for protecting them. Through the roof. Full. The house was full. Jesus was in the house, teaching and healing, and everyone wanted to see him. Some men had a friend who could not walk. They believed that Jesus could heal him, so they carried him to the house on a mat. Because the house was so full, they couldn't get in. So they carried their friend up the steps to the flat roof and started tearing up the tiles. They opened a hole in the roof. Everyone looked up, amazed. Then they lowered their friend into the middle of the crowd. They thought Jesus would heal their friend. Instead, Jesus said to him, "Your sins are forgiven." The religious leaders were very unhappy. "Only God can forgive sins," they grumbled.